Hello, welcome to my channel. Today we'll be talking about episodes 4 of Lovecraft Country. Let's get into it. This episode was crazy. So it was kind of like reminded me of National Treasure because they have to go to a museum. And we get our trio back of Montrose, Atticus, and Letitia all going on this adventure to the center of the earth to find the Book of Names, or some pages from the Book of Names. The way this episode starts gives us a big insight into Montrose. So as we've seen in the series so far, Montrose is a very angry man. He seems to have some violent tendencies. We've learned from Uncle George, who has passed, that Montrose had a violent relationship with their father, and therefore now Atticus has a violent relationship with his father. And something I have been questioning throughout the show is if Montrose actually cares for Atticus, because as you know, when they come and save him, Montrose is essentially like, I can't believe you come and save me after I sent you a letter asking for help when we haven't talked in, I think it was like 2 years or something like that. To which my response was just like, that's your son. Wouldn't you assume your son cares about you? And if you sent him an alarming letter like that, he'd come running back? Why would you assume he wouldn't? That made me think, like, does he even love him? And as we saw from episode 2, it seemed like Uncle George may have had some type of relationship with Atticus's mother, and I believe Montrose's wife. I believe they did get married. So, you know, there's a little thing. And another thing that was hinted at in episode 4 was Montrose's sexuality. Now, this is something I peeped back on episode 1 when Atticus comes back to Chicago and he's looking for his father, and he goes to the bar, and we see that the bar, I believe he's the bar owner, is in the back alley being, you know, getting a sexual favor done that Atticus kind of walks in on, to which the bar owner is essentially like, no, I haven't seen your father, but as you know, he's often here. You have picked his drunk butt off of my stools multiple times. It was also mentioned again in episode 4. I believe it was the guy who hitched a ride with them. He had commented that, hey, your father's been spending more time with the bar owner, who everyone knows is gay. So kind of insinuating that his father was gay. And we see Atticus really take note of this when they go to the museum, and they're at the museum in the daytime while the museum is open, looking for some hint that Titus has left for where they could find these pages. And Montrose essentially says, I know the security guard, he's gonna let us in tonight. To which Atticus kind of looks at the security guard, recognizes the guy, kind of looks back at his father, and kind of watches his father's interaction with the security guard, because the thought is brewing in his head that his father maybe gay, maybe bisexual, we don't know, but he may like men, right? A lot of things happening with Montrose, and that's just about his sexuality, and I kind of touched briefly on his anger, but we also see that he is probably an alcoholic, and once again, something that was mentioned before, but we really see it in this episode when he is essentially like spiraling out of control. It's when he ends up burning the Sons of Adam book that Uncle George had saved. And Montrose, I think from the beginning, has been hell-bent on protecting his son and his family, and essentially being like, trying to keep his son as far away from this magic stuff as he knows. And so now he read through this book, and then his drunk ass burns it. To which, of course, infuriates Atticus. And now we're starting to see little glimpse of Atticus's short temper and anger. And we've seen his intensity, I would say, since episode 2, more so. We see him very like high strung when they're stuck, or rather when they're at the mansion, especially from Jump, when he's like, you know, going off about these monsters that the other two, Letitia and Uncle George, don't remember. But we don't really see him bursting out in anger unreasonably. However, in episode 4, we're starting to see him be more aggressive over smaller things, to which that you would be kind of like, chill, bro, chill. This arc with Ruby and William. Okay, so we know Ruby's been having it rough. Ruby, she is a strong black woman. She, you know, gets her money. She does what she has to do, and she pushes to get those things that she is not supposed to have as a black woman in this time, aka the job at this, I would say, higher end apparel store. And so we see in this episode, she goes to apply, sees a black girl, and then realizes her chance of applying are screwed. So she goes to a bar, as we see her singing, and then she gets no applause, to which she's like, essentially like, fuck all y'all. Understandable. And then she goes to the bar, and here we see William. William, why are you here? The initial conversation is essentially Ruby's like, if you're here just for some WAP, I ain't giving it to you because I know you little white boys just kind of come down here for an experience. To which William is like, I'm here to change your life. Now, I had a million questions during this because, one, what is this objective? What are they trying to get at? And I talked to a coworker of mine who mentioned that, you know, Christina can't get into the house. So as we saw at the end of episode 3, Christina came to the house that Letitia bought because there's some astronomy thing that she needs. And we find out in this episode that that thing can help her turn back time for whatever reason she wants to turn back time. So my coworker said William may be getting close to Ruby so that way they can get into the mansion, because I guess it might be kind of like that vampire rule, they have to be invited in, considering they have the protection from the voodoo woman. That's what I was wondering what would happen, but that's not which we will talk about as I go into episode 5. But before I go into episode 5, let's just real quick conclude what was happening with our trio, and then I also want to touch on what happened with Hippolyta. Back to the trio, they have gone through this really convoluted underground booby traps and yeah, Indiana Jones is what you think of, as they go down through these caves to find the pages. And they find them, but they also find this intersex person who Titus essentially locked up in this like underground ship. Only Atticus is able to talk to her, probably because he has the bloodline, and they essentially help her leave this place that Titus has locked her up in hopes of her helping them translate the pages and just essentially give them more information about the sons of Adam. So they save her, and Montrose comes around. He slits her neck. He kills her. Why? To protect his family. One of the things he's been like on a constant in this episode is like, just leave this alone, Atticus, leave this alone, stop looking into it. And even Letitia kind of confronts Montrose and is like, you're gonna let your son run around looking for the information that you already have because of your selfishness. And once again, understandably, he wants him to be safe, but it is selfish, and you are willing to let your son run around looking for information, which may be even more dangerous considering you already have the information. So one of the big things that we see in this episode is the lack of trust between Atticus and Montrose. And Montrose clearly states in this episode that like he loves his son. He really does, and he knows he's made mistakes. Montrose essentially is like acknowledging that I was not the best father for you, but I am still your father and I do care for you at the end of the day. So that's, you know, a little heartwarming and hopefully kind of puts them on the road to start repairing their relationship. And finally, at the very end of episode 4, we see Hippolyta and Dee driving home. And Hippolyta is pissed. We had seen in episode 3 that she was like, I know y'all aren't telling me the truth about my husband, Uncle George's death. And she invited herself on this trip to the museum because she's like, y'all are up to something and I want to know what it is. To which, obviously, if you've watched the episode, after they find the pages, they end up back in Chicago at Letitia's mansion. So on the drive back, Dee is essentially like, how did they get back? To which Hippolyta was like, I don't know, but I'm gonna find out. She is looking for those answers, boy. Oh my God. That is all I have for you guys. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at creative_caprice. And that is it. Bye.